This is the Second Opinion Sports Medicine Podcast. I'm Dr. Dhokal.
I'm Dr. Glass.
Dr. Glass, how are you today, man?
Good, brother. What is today? Monday?
It's a Monday. It feels like the weekend. There's football playoffs, wild card weekend playoffs, which I think are some of the most exciting games in all of playoffs because there's upsets. But it does feel like a weekend on a holiday Monday. Happy Martin Luther King Day to you, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I was in just part-time today. Seems like everybody's got it off, and I went in for a few people and then got home, set up to do this. So good way to end the day. I might have a at home after this, but right now I'm in the present with you.
Good, man. Good. That's how our days go sometimes, is just compartmentalizing the day, whether it's patient to patient or sometimes it's office time, then home visit time if you're doing some concierge stuff like we do. I think it's a little bit of a superpower, I guess.
Yeah. Nature of the beast.
Yeah, no, I think it's good too. And if you're, an athlete or if you're a performer, you really have to be present. And I think in our practice, it's important to be present. And really most people, right? It's makes what you're doing usually a better experience.
That's for sure. 100%.
Well,
what's new with you? How was your weekend?
Weekend was good, man. Half busy, half had some time to catch up on some football games. It was interesting to see certain games. There's like crazy matchups with the Rams and the Lions, for instance. That was a wild game, just having Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff kind of switch teams and have a playoff matchup. Detroit won that game yesterday, which they hadn't won since the early 90s. I think 91 was their last playoff victory. So happy for the city. That's pretty cool.
No, it was good. I don't know if you saw towards the end of that game, they panned to the crowd and there's a grown-ass man just crying.
Isn't that right?
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, I've been meant a lot to that city, Detroit.
Yeah.
That's a city that, they're blue collar, hardworking people, and they take pride in their city. And so to have this win and to get to that meant a lot to them. So,
what I thought was cool, Dustin, was Jared Goff spoke on how the city's had some bumps and bruises, and he's had some bumps and bruises in his career and some shortcomings. And he spoke on like the 2008 crash in our country and how that affected Detroit in particular. And he just said, man, we are tough people and we've been beaten up and we've been bruised and we're still here and we're going to win this. And I thought that was super cool. I think maybe you told me about this stat about the crime in Detroit being inversely proportional to the amount of wins that
I did not
have.
That's pretty interesting. I'd like to see that.
I think this is the lowest crime rate in Detroit in like decades is what I read or somebody told me. So
no pressure, right? No pressure.
Man, keep winning. What was the most interesting? I was just going to say, what was the most interesting matchup of the weekend that you wanted to see or that you heard about, the outcome of the game? Any games that surprised you?
Not necessarily. Well, the one everybody's talking about, the Green Bay game. I think that was a huge shocker, right? I was out at the fields with my daughter and the team, and there was one guy that actually had a TV out there at the field. It was pretty amazing. And then dad's walking by with it was a big game, and then everybody was just chirping about 21-0, and then ultimately they ended up winning and killing them. So, but that's a huge upset for Dallas.
Yeah, they were kind of cooked early on, and you could say injuries maybe played some part in that, but at this point in the season, every team has a lot of injuries, and it was sometimes the young team has confidence, and sometimes I don't want to say older team, but they were definitely the favored team. It was very interesting because this Buffalo Steeler game that's going on currently, there's already been 4 or 5 major injuries. A couple, helmets to the ground, hard impact, people in the blue tent getting some concussion protocols. One of the receivers on Pittsburgh, one of the linebackers on Pittsburgh. There was an interesting play I wanted to tell you about, Dustin, with the Bills. Have you seen a holder or a kicker get hurt, like in an unconventional way before?
Holder or a kicker?
Mm-hmm.
Well, more so the kickers. I don't know what you mean by unconventional, but like tripping on himself, but a non-contact type injury.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. definitely not the holder. I haven't seen the holder get hurt at all, I don't think. So yeah, I haven't.
In today's Bills game, it reminded me a little bit of, it's not exactly the same, but do you remember Martin Gramatica? He was like the kicker for Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
He kicked the field goal and was like celebrating, and then he like landed and blew his knee out.
Yeah.
It wasn't this dramatic. I kind of felt for the guy. It's the holder for the Bills, who's also the Bills punter. He's number 8. His last name's Martin, and he was holding a field goal attempt. The attempt got blocked. Pittsburgh's going the other way, trying to recover and take it for some points. And he's trying to chase him down, and the holder gets up and starts chasing, and he just pulls his hamstring. So you've seen that where a guy's running and he's holding his leg, and, he slowed up. He made his attempt. The guy got tackled. I saw later on, right before we came live, he did come in and punt the ball. So he's working through it, which I thought was impressive.
That's tough.
But
yeah.
I didn't know if you thought maybe like the cold temperature had something to do with it. They are playing in Buffalo. They had to shovel snow out for the game today. I don't know exactly what the temperature is, but it's not warm.
I don't know. Right before we got on, I was looking through it, and social media posts, ESPN posted, they were showing a family up in the rafters, trudging through the snow, knee deep to get to their seats.
Yeah.
So it was pretty comical. Yeah, it's cold, man. And a lot of snow.
It says it's 21 degrees in Buffalo right now.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So it's the fourth quarter. Buffalo's up 24-10 last I saw. But I was thinking field position is so important, and if they lose their punter, that could make a difference. And it was just interesting. It wasn't on a tackle or somebody diving to block the kick. He was running, sprinting, and I was just like, man, how often do you see a punter doing sprints? Not very often, and all of a sudden he had to go 0 to 100.
Yeah. The problem with that too, there's so many things against him right there with the cold and not doing that very often, not having to do that, not even a preparation in his head that he's going to have to do that. When's the last time? But if you think about the mechanism, he's, for a holder, you're in that crouched position, right? So you're taking a knee, you're down there. Sometimes they're actually sitting kind of down. And so they go from that flex position to have to spring up and pivot and turn. And that's not something they practice on a regular at all. We talked about that in a podcast a couple of weeks ago when that lineman got hit by Kamara, I think, right?
Yeah.
And we were just talking about he's not used to taking a hit like these other guys, right? It's never easy to do that, but the football players are used to hitting, rolling, and tucking and doing what they need to. Well, this punter or holder or both are not used to having to do full sprints. So, yeah, double whammy for that guy. And the cold and the position, the recipe.
Recipe, right? Yeah. I mean, you're not even expecting to. You're not doing that in warm-up. It's not like you're a receiver, trying to chase someone down after an interception or trying to sprint to the end zone. I was glad to see him come back in and at least gut through a kick in this game. But I imagine, that thing could bruise up, right? If we're talking about what happens tomorrow, if he mildly pulled it or if he significantly pulled it, I would think maybe he wouldn't be in there punting again. But he might feel that for next week's game.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hoping for him for a speedy recovery and that it was just a little cold, little tight muscle pull, but nothing strange.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you catch any of the Rams game or see the final of that Rams-Lions game?
Watched pretty much 3 quarters of it, the last 3 quarters. It was, growing up, we had Rams tickets, Rams season tickets through my dad's company. So grew up with the Rams all through the 80s, 90s before they left to St. Louis. So we were pretty much diehard Rams fans. And when they left to St. Louis, that kind of went by the wayside. Just really couldn't get into it. Then when they came back, that's kind of been our family team. So last night we had a little birthday dinner for me and the family came over and.
Hey, hold on. Time out.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Thanks, brother. Thank you.
Come on, man.
So that was last week on the 10th. So all good, but we celebrated last night, but it was funny. My dad loves the Rams and my daughter had a game and he even told her before her last game, hey, Papa's going to be taking off. Have to go catch the Ram game. But
Yeah.
we'll catch up for dinner. Daughter's
That's
all
good.
okay.
That's
So
good.
yeah, that's the kind of household, importance priority. So no, but
I wanted,
my grandkids are their priorities 100%. They got up early and drove my daughter to a tournament real early this morning and in an hour away. So got to
dude,
give it
that's
to my
love.
parents. Yeah.
Well, that's a
So
beautiful thing that you guys, are close enough to be able to do that, and a beautiful thing that they can spend their time that way. And,
yeah.
what's better than that?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So we liked the whole drama about that game last night with the Goff and Severed, and that was exciting. And the way it was coming down to the end, the whole time though, and I even told my dad, I don't have a good feeling about it. I mean, Detroit, I just felt Detroit had this one, right? Even with 1 point away, it wasn't going in the Rams' direction. It felt
Yeah.
the whole half. So
I kind of had the opposite feeling, Dustin. Rams, I feel like somehow when the playoffs come, somebody gets hot and they really do it, and kind of turn it on. It's almost like when a team doesn't win often, that it's really hard to have that breakthrough, and they almost have that self-doubt, or the whole city of Detroit had this enthusiasm and had this optimism, but it wasn't like, we know we're going to win for sure. I didn't feel that, so I thought the Rams had definitely a fighting chance, and then Detroit got out kind of on top of them quick,
Yeah, they played that clock perfectly at the end, right?
Yeah.
With I think a minute and a little more than a minute and a half left, and they played it perfectly. So
I wanted to talk about one play in particular, which was towards the end of the game, fourth quarter. Matthew Stafford was under some duress, and he got the ball off, but he got hit. And when he got hit, two things happened. One is he hit his head, and two, he also got hurt on that play. And so he kind of got up holding himself, noticeably in pain, and kind of hobbled off the field, I guess I'll say. So I had some thoughts on that. One was, he went into the tent and, did he get a concussion there or did he not? It seemed like he came back and it wasn't a concern, at least not the head trauma. But it made me think of the Q collar, and he wasn't wearing one. And I was just like, man, I feel like preventatively, even if that wasn't a concussion, that's something that I just wish more players would wear, especially for that type of a hit. What'd you see there? I know there was a still that kind of made it look similar to another scary hit we saw, but what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that somebody online posted a picture like, why is he even in the game still? And it was a picture of him laying on the ground and kind of in that Tua type concussion, posture, with his hands kind of up and his eyes kind of rolling back. And that's just kind of the power of social media, right? People can, take a picture and kind of manipulate the scenario. And I looked at that and I instantly, because we both watched it, and if you watched it live, you saw the head go down. That's all for me and you. That's what we're first thinking about, neck and head. And then the next thing I saw was the way he got hit, his upper body got hit hard, and so it looked like shoulder. But then at the very end, he got a big 300+ pounder, big old probably 16-inch foot right on his right arm, landed on it. And I remember the posture he had right after he got stepped on was that picture. So when I saw that picture, it had nothing to do. And if you even look at the picture, you actually see the guy's foot in the corner of it. So it's just kind of one of those things where it just reminds me of we got to take what we see with a grain of salt, and kind of take it all into perspective. But to go back, that's just kind of a tangent, but to go back to your question, I think there's been enough preliminary type research that the Q collars don't do any harm, and they can do a lot of benefit. So I don't see why more people would not, at least, because from what I've talked to and heard, you don't really feel it. It doesn't really interfere with anything. It's such an easy thing. Once you get used to it, you don't even really think about it. But if it can help, like we talked about before, the Q collar, the way it does is it puts pressure on, the vascularity there just enough to kind of do a backflow of fluid back to the brain to kind of bathe the brain in a little extra fluid. So if we do get concussed or take a hit, it kind of cushions it a little more.
Yeah.
You know, I don't see any negative in that. So, I'm with you just from a preventative standpoint. Or here's the thing, at least you can say as an athlete, at least I did everything I could to help prevent something. Concussions are still inevitable. You know, it's part of the game, but at least if you're taking those right precautions, you can at least have a good feeling that at least I gave myself a fighting chance.
No, that's right. It's like having pads, having protection. There's a reason you do it. I think if I'm, speculating, it's probably just going to take some time before it hits a tipping point. Everybody or most people are wearing it. It also made me think of like the specialized helmets like Tua is wearing, for instance. I could almost see helmets being even more specialized than they are now positionally. They already are positionally specialized, but in particular for those backward post sack or post hits where you fall on your back and your head whips back and hits, either the turf or the field. So that could be helpful. It's no different to me than mouthpieces, which also, let's talk about how many people don't wear their mouthpieces when they're playing. Like you see them dangling from the helmet and stuff. And it makes me wonder, like, do you have just another one in there and you're just wearing that for show, or you just don't care if you're wearing it? It almost seems like that would be required.
It used to be. I don't understand. And I saw something this weekend I had never seen, but my mom and dad said they actually saw it the week before, but I had never seen it. The guy put it up on the back end of his helmet. I'd never seen that. I always see it in the front. We used to put it, there or let it hang and put it in the front of the face mask, but I've never seen a guy put it up there. Look like a hair pick almost.
Yeah, it looked like almost like the end of like a lollipop or like
exactly, like
it looked like air bladder maybe.
That old popsicle stick.
Yeah. I thought maybe it was like an air bladder type of thing that he forgot to pull, perhaps, or something. But I noticed that as well. Well, when we have one of our NFL safeties
on the mouth guards, when I was working with one of the teams up in LA, we the teams have dentists, and a lot of people don't even realize that. Got full blown dentists, and the dentists a lot of times do more work than the orthos. Especially in hockey and certain
makes sense.
But our dentist was always really busy, but he would come in and make customized mouth guards for everybody. And he even fitted me with one once. That was kind of cool because we had the logo on and it was red, white, and blue. It was really cool.
Oh, nice.
What am I going to do with it, right? But
put it on, bro. Do you have it?
Yeah. And, so pretty cool. But when I would talk to him about it, it wasn't just the dental stuff that we all know of, and me and you know this, but at the time learned a lot about how there was a lot more research coming out how the mouth guard could actually help with the concussion symptoms and protocol, the way it drops the jaw a little, so you're not taking that force right into the skull. So a lot of people don't realize that it's not, they just think, oh, you're just protecting your teeth. Some people might not care about that. No, it's also another just IQ collar. Why not wear it, right? So,
wow, that's a perfect example of sometimes you forget what you know, and I don't mean that in any sort of like high knowledge type of way, but just it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I always, for the longest time, have just thought of mouthpieces as concussion preventative, but obviously it's people are looking at teeth first or cosmetically and not thinking it's concussion. But man, that's a great point. I kind of forgot that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still have that mouthpiece?
I do. It's on my.
Well, I know that you know where it is. So one of these episodes, I want you just to start it off with it in there. In
there, perfect.
Yeah, I love
that. It off.
Dude, since we're talking about helmets, perfect little segue here. Did you see the Kansas City game this weekend? One that was super cold, right? It was like the fourth coldest game, -4 degrees. Just like this Buffalo game where they're shoveling snow and they paid people $20 an hour to shovel snow before the game. The game temp's 20 degrees, but I was wondering if this particular play, if it had something to do with the cold. Patrick Mahomes on a run got hit. I mean, I guess you could say helmet to helmet because his helmet shattered, and I've never really seen that before. I've seen paint come off before, but it was like the helmet actually cracked. So that was interesting. They were looking for a new one, trying to find one with a mic in it. And what'd you think when you saw that?
Yeah, like you said, I've seen paint flecks, I've seen decals, I've seen parts of like the clips from the face mask bust off. I've never seen a chunk like that come off, and
Right.
and it was significant. It was just it was probably, I don't know, 1 or 2 inches.
Dude, it's a chunk. Yeah.
Yeah, it was big, and wasn't any kind of crazy hit. He's taken harder ones than that, so I would have to assume that there's a temperature thing on that. I don't think that I'm sure the engineers of the helmets take into consideration temperature, but probably not to those extremes.
Right.
So and it could have just been a weak area in the helmet anyways. It didn't look like it. You can look inside of it and see it obviously was the front shell, so not going to affect, that
Structural integrity.
yeah. But just like any kind of, like when I'm working with motocross, supercross, any kind of cycling, as soon as you crack that helmet though, it's out, because it does affect the integrity of it. So they had to stop it, had to get it out. And like you said, it's just interesting that they replaced it, relatively quickly. They had something for them. And but
I mean, I don't want to be a Charger fan who brings this up, but they weren't charged a timeout. Speaking of Chargers, they weren't charged a timeout. They just paused it. I mean, that's an equipment exchange. So either you're supposed to sit out, as I understand it, for a play, or you teams charge a timeout as you make an equipment change. But they kind of were like, "You're the MVP, so we're going to Michael Jordan you here," and just
interesting take, Charger fan or Charger. No, but honestly, that's true, because I mean, I just think everybody kind of not freaked out, but just going, what the heck? We've never seen this. What do we do with this? It's not really a like, oh, my belt fell off or my shoe fell off type thing. You busted a helmet. What do we do with this? Well, let's just pause and go get a new helmet.
I think he played a play before they made him pause. I think he got one off before maybe they noticed, and then they paused it. I'd have to rewatch it somehow, but kudos to Kansas City. They pulled off a W at home against a tropical Miami team that was down.
You sound so annoying. You sound just the way you're saying that.
I'm going to read you. I'm going to read you this here real quick. This is just right before the start of the game, how many people Miami was missing. And again, I know every team is missing a lot of people and they had injuries in the game, but notable players out for Miami. And, these are 6 defensive guys. Dude, there's only 11 starters. Yeah. So linebacker Jalen Phillips, his Achilles. Linebacker Bradley Chubb, his ACL. That was a big one just recently. Linebacker Andrew Van Ginkel, we spoke about him and his foot injury. Linebacker Jerome Baker, he had a wrist issue. Safety Javon Holland, he had a knee problem. And cornerback Xavier Howard, he had a foot problem. So what I thought was interesting is it's 4 linebackers, a safety, and a corner. That's all the defensive side.
Yeah.
And we'll see who Kansas City plays in the next round.
Yeah. It's tough to win games against them healthy and everybody going full go. When you're down that many defenders that are, game changers for you, that's tough.
And, all jokes aside, there is something to cold acclimatization. You say the word for me?
You did right. Yeah.
Being
acclimated.
Acclimated. Thank you, my friend. Acclimated. Yeah, I mean, you're in Kansas City, you're used to it, right? You're in Chicago, you're used to it. You're in New York, Buffalo, you're a little bit used to it. You take the San Diego kid who wears a hoodie all the time to the East Coast, I'm going to feel it. And, I'd like to think I could power through it if it's an athletic endeavor, but, it has to affect you in some way, right?
It has to.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And the opposite.
Yeah.
The opposite true too, right? With the heat.
Yep, for sure. That's heat. Temperature, climate, but then also we've talked about in the past, the travel, the amount of time, the difference, East Coast, West Coast, all that kind of stuff. I know they weren't quite that far, but still, it all takes a toll.
On a side note, before I want to speak about a player that my heart goes out to a little bit in a second, but I wanted to ask you a quick story if you could remember any road trips that you've taken with some teams where it was, I don't want to say a disaster, but you were just like, well, this is not going to help the situation. This is a negative, whether it was a bed issue or equipment didn't make it. Can you remember something off the top of your head where you're like, this is not ideal and this won't make it out to the public?
Yeah, no. I'm trying to think. No, not off the top of my head, but
Nope.
if something comes, I'll definitely let you know
Yeah, it's hard off the
off the cuff like that.
off the cuff like that, but I know you have some, so we'll keep that in mind
Yeah,
for another
for
time
sure.
down the
That'll be
road.
fun to talk about.
Um, I was trying to think if I could think of one off the top of my head. There was a situation where we were traveling to another city, and this one particular player always was a little bit heavier, always used to request a piece of plywood to put underneath the mattress, the between the mattresses, I should say, to make it less soft. And they were supposed to have it. We went to the hotel, didn't have it. And man, I heard about that 3 or 4 times during my treatment. Saw him the next morning. Hey man, good luck today. How's the body feel? Thanks for your help. Felt good, but I slept like shit. I'm like my body, and it was really kind of in his head because that routine changed a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think he had a bad game or anything like that, but I do remember being like, man, that hotel needs to have that piece of plywood ready for my guy,
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, something as simple as something like that, but yeah, it derails a guy.
Derails you a little bit,
Yep.
Um, well, what else is on your mind, Dustin? Anything that caught your eye, either on the field with your girls or in professional athletics that you thought was interesting in the last week or 10 days?
Well, getting back to that Ram game, and maybe you're going to bring this up. I don't know. We didn't really talk about it, but the Higbee hit towards the end, so I have mixed emotions with that one. And do you remember that hit? Did you see
I did see it, yeah. And we kind of talked about another hit against Michael Pittman Jr.
Yeah.
That, was that dirty? Was it not? And I think you and I both agreed it wasn't dirty, or at least our opinion was that it wasn't dirty.
Mm-hmm.
But this was, it's a big hit, right? So what did you see in that?
Yeah. So, Higbee, routine catch, and the defender comes down and just kind of, and again, like we've talked about before, it's real easy to critique when you go slow-mo, right? And you rewind it and you go, let's critique every little second of this setup and hit. But when you're going live time, when that happened in live time, we all just kind of went, oh man, what a big hit, because he got upended, right? I mean, his legs got hit from under, he went over, and he kind of scorpion hit his head.
Yeah.
That's my first concern, the way he hit his head, right? Yeah. But after he was laying there, it was his knee. It was his knee issue that he had an issue. And then they went back and wanted to see, where's the injury, just like everything. And you see the defender coming in, bulleting through, kind of going horizontal to the ground with his head like right at his knee. And then it's a full hyperextension. And, the speculation is when that injury happens, like a hyperextension, like we talked about many times, that's an ACL waiting to happen, tear. So, and that's exactly, he got up and he's hobbling off because of his knee, not because of his neck or back. And then everybody wanted to go instantly into, that was a dirty hit, coming down low like that, So, I just kind of wanted to know what your take was on that, reflecting on it.
It's like you said, I think the main takeaway is if you pause any sort of frame, you can find what looks to be, an egregious play or an egregious hit, and I don't think you can take it in the context of a frame or a super slow-mo. I also thought it was interesting. The announcers during that said that one of the particular announcers had said that he'd asked a whole bunch of offensive players. He'd surveyed a whole bunch of offensive players unofficially and said, which hit would you like to get rid of? If you could get rid of one or the other, is it the upper body hit to the head that you want to get rid of, or is it the lower body hit to the knee? And he said, bar none, everybody said they'd rather get hit up high than get hit down low, because those down low injuries are career enders, Yeah. And not that a concussion isn't significant, but you have a helmet on, and the likelihood, unless you go helmet to helmet, which is a different situation, most guys aren't trying to injure anybody. They're out there trying to play hard. They're getting paid to defend. The other side's getting paid to try to go and score. And so there has to be some equality there. And I just thought it was interesting that the announcers said, hey, if you survey the players, they would rather get hit up high than hit down low just because of that exact thing. And I think that defender was doing the right thing. He was trying not to hit up high because the ball was extended. You're going to get flagged for, a defenseless receiver. And yeah, he aims at a place that when he jumped, that wouldn't have been illegal. Then the receiver goes down or goes up, whatever the situation is, and it's just unfortunate, man. It's a bang situation, and it's tough. I don't have an answer for it,
Yeah, no. So that's exactly, you led into that perfectly, because that's kind of, what the thought process was during all that, and obviously, and that was Kirby Joseph that laid that hit. And of course, after the game, they're going to interview him. They're going to interview the defense and get their take on it. Hey, was that a cheap shot or not? And he's going to defend himself. But, it was interesting. One of his linebacker, teammates came to his defense and said, and I think I quoted it, they said it's how the league, what does he say? It's how the league office, that's how they instruct us to tackle. That's the instruction for that, right? That's what the league has told them. That's how they want to hit to avoid the upper body contact, like you just said. So he did exactly how the league is asking them to approach that tackle, and is to go low. And now people are questioning it. So it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. You got these guys trying to fly around, make a play. And even Kirby Joseph, he said, man, I don't, wish injury upon anybody. I'm not here to hurt people. I'm here to play the game and to do my job. And so, obviously he felt bad, but even the Lions D was talking about it after. And, a couple of them actually blamed Stafford for throwing it across the middle like that and leading. They're like, if you want to really pick blame at somebody, Stafford shouldn't have led him like that. And that's a very dangerous throw to do. So it's pretty interesting. I never thought about, being a lineman. I don't think about what's going on, but I thought that's a routine. You see that play all the time across the middle, catch that play, but it's a very dangerous play for a receiver. And them that flip the narrative a little and say, well, if you want to blame anybody, blame the quarterback for leading them like that and throwing him where he threw it.
I'll play Uno with you and throw another card down and reverse it and say, as a QB, that shows a lot of trust in your receivers to make the throw before the cut, or to lead a receiver in a window where it's a catch and a bang, bang, and you're right. Quarterbacks aren't trying to stretch someone out and lead them out. But I saw Stafford yesterday with Puka, and several of his receivers show a lot of trust and put that ball in tight windows. And sometimes that's what you have to do. And then also, being devil's advocate, look, if they weren't on a turf field, he gets hit, that foot gets swept, it doesn't get caught.
Right.
Grass. On an icy field, even in Buffalo. I know that Buffalo field is hard and, probably feels like just as hard as concrete, but I still think it's better than turf in some respects. So it's tough to say, man. I mean, it's really tough as far as that goes. I think it's just part of the game. And I think if the intention wasn't to hurt somebody, if the intention wasn't intentional, then I think most players accept that as, man, this is part of the game. But I did think it was interesting. The announcer said, I interviewed all these offensive guys and they all said, man, hit me high.
Yeah.
Protect my legs, and that's what quarterbacks say too, you see that sometimes an offensive lineman shoves a defensive lineman down and he stumbles into, I saw it with Mahomes this weekend. He got hit right above the knee and the thighs and he was immediately looking for a flag, upset. So, that Higbee one was bang, bang. They're done for the year, so he'll recover, but did you hear if he was significantly hurt in that play?
No, they're going to have an MRI today to see how his ACL was. So hopefully not. That way he can enjoy the off season and come back stronger. I don't think he had the season he was quite hoping for. He kind of was, it didn't seem, I didn't follow it a whole lot, but just didn't seem like he had the season he was hoping for.
Sure.
Yeah.
As a offensive lineman, Dustin, I wanted to ask you a question because I saw a play this weekend. It was in the Texans game. So the Texans had a home playoff game. They were able to pull a victory out. But one of their offensive linemen, perhaps their best offensive lineman, Larry Tunsil, he hurt his left knee. To me, it looked like an MCL maybe or something, but he didn't do it playing. He did it on an extra point. So what I was trying to say is he didn't do it like on a running or a pass protection play. He was on the right side of the line during an extra point or a field goal attempt, and his own guy, the guard next to him, just kind of buckled I think it was his left leg. That makes sense. I think his left leg got hit from the outside, so MCL perhaps is what it looked like. And it made me think how often like an all-pro guard is on the line for an extra point. Is that commonplace?
Yeah, I was surprised about that too. I watched that play, saw it, and I was kind of curious of why that was. I wasn't thinking, he's a key player for him. He's protecting that blind side for him, so, that's a big one to put at jeopardy for that kind of, that's exactly why you don't want him out there for those silly plays, right? I mean,
right.
So, and I saw the play too, the way he, like you said, his teammate fell down on him, right down onto his calf, buckled his knee, and he kind of went down, and he came straight up, got to his other knee. His involved knee was up, and he's instantly trying to feel it and check its stability.
Right.
Trying to point, and he was pointing and putting pressure on that MCL area. I was a little worried it might be some PCL with that hyperflexion mechanism, and it could be some of that too, but he was going right for that medial meniscus and checking. A lot of people don't know that those meniscus can slip too. So you can feel, and even when we do our orthopedic tests, it can show up like a torn meniscus, but in actuality, it's just shifted a little and it can get pinched in there. So what I'm hoping is that the way it got rolled up on is that the tib fib joint, we've talked about in the past, and that's it's got a muscle that rotates that lower leg and ankle. I'm hoping that might have just kind of rotated quickly and then put pressure on that meniscus. And then by the time everything calms down, trainer can get in there, loosen up that quad, calf, popliteus, get that all moving well. And I'm hoping that meniscus slides back in. I can speak from experience. I've had that before and it hurts and it feels, you could swear, like I've wanted to take a knife into there and just pop that meniscus out before it hurts so bad. But then once you get the tension off and it slides right back in, you're like, oh man, I'm golden. And you're like, man, I was ready for the knife and now I'm fine overnight almost. So,
I wonder if it's similar to you, if you would describe it this way, but when I hurt my meniscus, it felt a little different. It wasn't quite the same as that, but that feeling when it locked reminded me of like impingement in my shoulder that I would get from throwing.
Yes.
Or like you might feel that if you're doing like military press for those who go out and, do that movement when they're lifting, or I've had some CrossFitters with the same syndrome who do those kind of, I call them aggressive pull-ups. What are those, kipping pull-ups or something?
Kips, kipping.
And so you get that same kind of impingement pinching, and they'll sometimes describe it like, man, it's just something in there, and can you pop it? Can you get it to go? And sometimes some distraction and movement will reset that joint slightly, but it seems to work better in that way for the shoulder than the knee, in my experience. What have you felt?
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things. I've had both separated shoulders. I've had torn biceps and pecs and torn meniscus and lateral releases. So I've had kind of both, and I can sympathize and empathize with people. And I've been fortunate to be able to help a lot of people. So I work on, with my dancers, I work on a lot of lower leg stuff. So I've been fortunate. I find that is one that I can work on and release quite a bit. And that's kind of rewarding to help people with that. So, but to your point, releasing a shoulder and like that costotransverse clavicle, that AC junction, that does go a lot easier than the lower leg.
Yeah. And I think it's easier. Obviously, it's weight bearing. So like if you get it feeling better, you walk out of the office, maybe 2 hours later, it kind of goes back to how it was because of that pressure. And so hopefully, when I saw that, it just bummed me out because it seemed like such an unnecessary way for him to go down. And since they won the game and they're advancing now, all of a sudden it's like, well, is he in there to play? you don't have your left tackle as a quarterback, that's such an important, that's
Huge
your guy next to your center, so it'll be interesting to see how they play next week. There's another offensive lineman on the Browns, Joel Bitonio, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He's a guard, and he got hurt as well. I think you said that you'd seen his injury. What were your thoughts when you saw him get hurt?
Yeah, I didn't see it, but that guy, I looked him up and I was trying to find some video to see how it goes, but all the reports I was seeing was that it was his ankle. But
that's right.
I was bummed for him. He's a veteran. He was in the 2014 draft. He's got a good career. He's a big dude, and I just hate to see him, go out. I'm hoping that this next couple of days it's not as bad, as it is. But those big guys, man. He's a local guy. He's a California guy, and he went to Nevada. So all West Coast. Yeah, so kind of rooting for him. Hope he recovers.
Yeah, you want to see those guys hit the double digits, and a lot of times offensive linemen don't get any notoriety unless they get hurt or they get a false start or a holding penalty or something, But yeah, I was going to say you are correct that it was a right ankle. When I saw it, to me, it looked like maybe his knee had really gotten the brunt of the impact, and that just goes to show sometimes you shouldn't really speculate because you never know. Sometimes what something looks like isn't as bad as it is, or it's down the chain or up the chain. But it's just human nature. When I watch a game, I see something, I'm like, oh man, I hope that's not this or that. And then wait to hear. I would never do that with a current athlete, or if I was on the sidelines and jump to conclusions.
Yeah.
But when you're a fan at home, that just happens naturally.
Yep, that's natural. Yeah. You go with what your eyes are telling you at the time, and then you'll get more information. But
I saw something in the news this weekend, Dustin, that I wanted to get your opinion on because I thought it was so crazy that our news sometimes puts out terrible information. It's like they don't vet these stories or whatever. Anyways, what I saw was it was recommendations for people over the age of 50. And things not to do. Did you see this at all? Did I send it to you by chance?
No, you didn't.
Okay. Well, I don't want to speak incorrectly, so I'm just going to take a second here and pull it up. But it was, a CBS News story, and it was things, exercises that are bad for people that are 50 and older. Yeah. And maybe I should have you guess. You want to guess what some of those things might be?
Yeah. Running.
Okay.
Squatting.
Mm-hmm.
Are they exercises? All exercises?
All exercises, yeah.
Okay, so running, squatting. Let's see. Military press.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
I'm not confirming or denying. I'm just like giving you I hear you.
Yeah, I got you. Well, yeah.
That's good. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, depends on what they're like. This is going to be interesting to me to see why they're saying what they're saying, and because go ahead.
So they said bad exercises for people 50 and older was the title, and it said pull-ups, push-ups, squatting with weights, and deadlifts. Those were the 4 recommendations. And when I first read that and saw that, Peter T actually put it on his Instagram page and had said, just I think simply noted. But one, it depends on the 50-year-old, like in a few years, I'm still getting buckets. I'm still running. I'm still doing the things I want to do, including getting pars and birdies on the golf course, and I think if you have a frail 50-year-old who has never exercised in his whole life, then maybe doing deadlifts is a really good way to hurt your back if you start ice cold. But working up to the point to where you can do a deadlift, I think should be everybody's goal, even if you're in your 50s or 60s or beyond that. Like, I don't care where you're at. I think you can start somewhere and, okay, you can't do a push-up, but you can do a plank. You can't do a pull-up, but you can do a hang. You can't squat with weights, but you can squat with your body weight. We should all be able to do that. And same with deadlifts. Maybe you can't deadlift weight, but you should be able to be flexible enough to, flex at the hips and be able to come back up without throwing your back out, right?
Yeah.
That was frustrating to me to read that. I mean,
Yeah.
I get what you said about running and about, military lift military press compromising the shoulder. What was your, what's your initial thought when you
Yeah.
see that on CBS News to people who watch the news like our parents who believe everything that they see on TV?
Yeah. And let me start off by saying all that list I gave you, and I know you know this, but to our listeners, I don't agree with any of that. I'm just saying what I thought they thought.
Right,
Because
right.
that's what I hear from the orthos all the time. I have patients come in, they're like, oh, they told me not to run anymore. They told me not to squat. I'm like, well, do you want to run? Do you want to squat? If the answer is yes, then let's figure out a way to take baby steps to get you there, right?
Right.
If the answer is no, then I don't want you doing anything that's stressor to your body, because that's not going to help either. But let's figure out a way to get you moving and get those joints moving, in another way that you're going to like. But yeah, so anytime I see headlines, I always, because the headlines are what grabs us, right? So that's a very, very provocative statement, right? That they know is going to upset a portion of people, right? So
Probably.
they want to capture us, right? So
Did I get baited?
yeah, you got baited. No, but it's perfect. But so would I. I would want to read that. So, but then the next thing I always want to know is, okay, give me your rationale behind why they should not do it. Like what's your reference point? So, and a lot of these columnists don't go into why they shouldn't do these. They just say, based on the research, this is what they say is not the best, whatever. But why, right? And that's what I would always question. And I tell my kids all the time, always ask why. Keep asking why. Be inquisitive. Always question everything and get answers. And if you're not satisfied with the answer, figure out why you're not satisfied and keep figuring it out, right? So, but I wouldn't take anything at face value, So.
I would challenge anybody who's about to be 50 or is in their 50s. They should make it their goal to be able to do a pull-up, to be able to do some push-ups, to be able to squat with weights, and to be able to do a deadlift.
Yeah.
Maybe with just the bar, or start out with nothing. But that should be your goal. You shouldn't just be like, well, I can't do that. So that's why I thought that was just terrible. I mean, it could have been framed as, these are the things that if you're 50 and over, you are predisposed to getting hurt. And so that's why doing 15 minutes of strength and mobility every day to prevent you from getting hurt from this is a positive thing. Or, these are the most common ways people get hurt. And it's important to be able to be strong in the deadlift motion, or to be able to, hold your weight or do a push-up, have that upper body strength, or have the balance for a squat. So I just saw so many people deteriorating. I told you I went to Disneyland and I saw so many people in scooters and just poor health. It bummed me out. I was like, I don't think that has to be the predestined, future as you age, that you become worse and worse in your mobility and your strength. I think that that's what we're fed along with the shitty food, but I don't think that has to be it,
Yeah. Well, what would also be interesting, and this is the research in us and the education in us, we're always going to ask questions, being, from university and studious, right? So what I would then ask too, what I would project is, okay, why 50s? What are we seeing? Why these movements won't be good? Well, who at that population of 50-year-olds, they're also on medications. One of the medications that are prescribed for people 50 and over are cholesterol meds, which are statins. Statins are known to cause muscle strains. So if this population that they're talking to are on statins, they have a higher incidence of straining, not because of the motion, but because of the drug that's causing their tissues to be more susceptible. So, and I just had a new patient today that came in, and he's in his late 20s, and he's had a 2-year history of strains in his back, and with no real incidence of why. And one of the things that came out in his history was that he's on a statin already. And I asked him, I said, hey, when did you get on that statin? 2 years ago. And it literally correlated with when this started. I didn't go into it because he's a brand new patient. We had our initial consultation and, exam, but I circled it, and we're going to, in our review of finding, we're definitely going to have that discussion. Not that we're going to say, hey, get off of this, but hey, be aware that this is...
Be aware.
Yeah, be aware. talk to your doctor about this. You know, you're in your 20s and you're on a statin. That's another thing I'm concerned about. He must have a family, history. He said he didn't, but there's got to be a reason why somebody's going to put him on. And he's a very physical job. He's in first responder. So like that scares me.
I bet you a California burrito that they didn't tell him that was one of the side effects.
Yeah.
When they prescribe.
That's why we're going to have this conversation and at least educate.
Well, that's what makes you a great doctor, is like you're thinking outside. I don't want to say outside the box. That's not outside the box to me. You're just thinking holistically and taking everything into account. What do you eat? What are you taking medication wise? What is your activity level? What is your stress level? What are your physical capabilities? All these things matter, and yeah. Well, I'm glad that you caught that. I think it's at least worth a discussion to make him aware, like you said, and it could be a contributing factor.
Yeah, who knows? But at least it opens up a conversation, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's an awesome article and stuff that's out there that we need to have opinions on and talk about.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey man, we're coming up kind of towards the end of it. Is there anything else that caught your eye or that was on the tip of your tongue that you wanted to bring up for last week or the week coming up or in general?
Nope. I'm excited to see how these playoffs pan out. There's a couple, teams that we've seen that did not expect to see. It'll be interesting to see how Green Bay does against 49ers, right? So, yeah.
Well, I'm predicting a Niners victory. Yeah. I think Green Bay experience tells me that they're happy that they got their playoff win and they're going to come into San Francisco kind of on a little bit of a high and maybe with nothing to lose. And so sometimes you can play super loose that way, but I kind of feel like they're happy to have already won one and the Niners are rested and I think they're ready to slap them around a little bit. Yeah. That's my prediction on that one.
Yeah. Yep. I second that. I'm hoping the Bills win. I really like Allen.
Dude,
I like his story. I was bummed last year. It didn't happen for him.
It's their year, I think.
Yeah.
I think I'm not just saying that just because I work with a couple of the guys, but they did end up winning, by the way. 31-17 is the final.
Oh.
So pretty decisively, they got out to a 14-0 lead and then 21-0 at one point, actually. So they'll move on. I think, if it ends up being the Bills and the Ravens for the AFC Championship.
Yeah, that's going to be a
man.
Dogfight
is going to be. That's almost like one of those you want to see a best of three.
Yeah, right?
Like, yes.
Yep.
I really would. And then on the other side, I think it'll be Niners and, boy, it's tough to say. Who else do you think on the NFC side? Philly doesn't look strong. They're going to play Tampa Bay here in a few minutes, and I think Philly could take an L from Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay today, to be honest.
Yeah.
People always discount Baker. And I think Baker's a winner, and Philly's lost 5 of their last 6.
Yeah, they're struggling.
They're struggling a little bit. I don't know. But, yeah, who are you pulling for to win it all? I'm going to put you on that line before we go too far in the playoffs. Yeah, some people have been eliminated, so there's not too many to pick from.
I really want Bills. I want Allen.
Right.
I was hoping for Cousins. That's really who I wanted at the beginning of the season. I really wanted it for him. So I'm really bummed that he's out. But
yeah, well, I'm on you with the Bills train. I'd love to see a Bills-Niner Super Bowl.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I think the Ravens are a lot of fun too. I have a client who's on the Ravens as a, not a starter, but he's coming off the bench and contributing, and so that'd be exciting for him. Sometimes I was looking this weekend. I had a client on Kansas City, one on the Texans, one on the Dolphins, one on Buffalo, one on the Ravens. And sometimes you forget guys like kind of float around the league a little bit.
Yeah.
And you lose track of them. So it's kind of fun to watch and be like, oh man, that dude made a play. Like, good for him. I'm glad he's still, doing his thing, So it made me happy to see. It's a fun time of year with football.
Perfect. Well, we got a few more weeks.
Well, one last thing, Dustin. This is episode 49, so next week is episode 50 for us.
Yeah,
that's a big number. And
Like 49 episodes ago, we were talking about this day. What the heck?
We really were. We really were. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a little milestone, man. You should reflect on that too. You've taken a lot of time to drive down, and we do spend time researching these topics and spend time listening to those who listen to us. So there's a good time to say that we appreciate you. And I think a lot of you have been sharing some of your favorite episodes, or even some of our little shorter clips with friends. I've noticed a little uptick in people telling me that they've shared stuff.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that. That kind of just ups everything for us. So if you're listening to this, hit that download button. That helps our metrics. Tell a friend. That also helps. But we appreciate you. And Dustin, episode 50 next week. We'll talk later on. But congrats, man. That was our goal, was to knock out 50 and see what we wanted to do. So we're right there.
Let's get there. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited for next week. We should have some good football to talk about.
Yes, we will. Right, buddy.
All right, my brother. Well, if there's nothing else, say hi to the family for me. And
we'll do. You too.
Have a good rest of the week. Have a good rest of the MLK day. And we'll touch base later this week and be hopefully in studio next week, huh?
Yeah, that's the hope.
Okay. All right, my brother. Well, we'll chat soon. To our listeners, thank you so much. This is the Second Opinion Sports Medicine Podcast. I'm Dr. Dhokal.
I'm Dr. Glass.
You guys be healthy, be safe, and we'll be back with you guys in a few days. Take care.
Take care. Thank you.